Buckle in, folks, because yep, we're in for a wild ride. So tier lists are fun, and Marvel is fun. We love both tier lists and Marvel. I've been making videos for about 6 months now, and it's been great. I've been making more shorter videos, maybe 10 to 20, even 30 minutes long, and they've been really fun to produce. But I got to thinking, well, I also want to work on a larger project. And so I've been really loving doing the tier lists, and I thought, well, surely there has to be a Marvel characters tier list somewhere. Sure enough, I go onto the tier list website and find this glorious thing. 100 plus Marvel characters from the MCU. Basically, everybody that has a name and was named in the MCU Infinity Saga is on this list, and even some people who don't have names. Now, couple things to keep in mind here. One, I am recording this and beginning to edit this before WandaVision has come out, because otherwise there is just absolutely no way I would be able to get it out in a timely manner. Because I want to get this video out at least before WandaVision is done, and if I wait any longer, well, I'm going to have to deal with WandaVision characters, probably Falcon and Winter Soldier characters, Loki characters, it's just going to be a mess. So we are dealing with the 23 films from the Infinity Saga. Secondly, a little bit of a hint as to what's to come this coming year. After I finish up and wrap up my Infinity Saga review series, yes, those videos are still coming. We are on Ant-Man and the Wasp, I believe. There are going to be a lot of tier lists. And I'm going to be doing some tier lists that are going to be ranking these same characters, maybe in different combinations and different ways than you expect. So keep this in mind. What differentiates this tier list from those tier lists is that this tier list is really informal. It is basically entirely subjective. The other tier lists, I'm going to lay out some groundwork as to what I'm looking at, specific criteria, maybe powers, costumes, you name it. But this tier list is completely subjective. Like, to the point of if the character has a good meme, it's probably going to be ranked pretty high. And also, what I'm looking at in this tier list is not necessarily character arcs or motivations or backstories. I'm really taking into account just, did I like the character? Do I like them in the MCU? Am I excited every time they show up? So some characters will land in the same tier as they do in the future tier list, some will not. And it's because, well, this one's subjective, and the other ones, you'll know my criteria. I'll lay it out, I promise. But okay, enough dilly-dallying. This video is going to be long, so grab your popcorn, grab your snacks, whatever it is, and yeah, let's start ranking these MCU characters. Oh, really quick, and also there's no way that all the characters are going to fit on this tier list in one screen. There's going to be some scrolling later on in the video as the tier list fills up, so please bear with me. I'm doing my best to show you guys who I'm ranking as well as where they fit in the tier list. So yeah, here we go. Starting off with the ultimate villain, Thanos, going in the S tier. Thanos is iconic. Listen, the fact that Thanos works as well as he does is a miracle, because when we first saw him in Guardians of the Galaxy, I went, this guy is cool, but he's also pretty generic looking and kind of fake, honestly. Which is, by the way, no fault of James Gunn, or Joss Whedon later on in Age of Ultron in the post-credits scene, but the villain that we were looking at, I went, okay, looks cool. But then we saw the first trailer for Avengers Infinity War, and wow, that CGI is incredible. On top of that, Josh Brolin's performance is immaculate. The amount of character development that the Russos gave him, and you guys already know, I love good villains. Good villains believe what they're doing is right. Thanos absolutely believes what he's doing is right. And just look at this picture. Look at how cool that design is. Wow. Yeah, there's no way that Thanos is not going in the S tier. He is just so iconic. And because he is that good, he manages to elevate Infinity War and Endgame up to that next level. Next up is Ant-Man, who I'm also actually going to put in the S tier. Yes, if I'm going objectively speaking, quote unquote, to my own criteria, Ant-Man is probably not an S tier character. I mean, he's only been in, 4 movies? He hasn't gotten the most character development. I mean, he's gotten some in Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, but, you know, he's just the goofy side character. But I love Paul Rudd so much in this role. He is just the funniest, most charismatic part of basically every scene that he's in. I don't know, when I was rewatching all 23 Infinity Saga films again this time around, I just gained this deeper appreciation for just how valuable Paul Rudd is as this character. He's able to bring heart when he needs to, Avengers Endgame, even Ant-Man and the Wasp in the first Ant-Man, but he brings laughs and levity. Honestly, he is probably one of the best parts of Captain America Civil War. He just grounds the airport battle and makes it feel so fun. I just love the character, and honestly, I am so pumped that we're getting an Ant-Man 3. Before rewatching all these films, I would have gone, yeah, okay, Ant-Man 3, but now just give me Paul Rudd and everything, honestly. Vision, I'm going to put in the B tier. Not that I don't like Vision, and guys, B tier is pretty good. Let's be clear, C tier doesn't mean bad. C is pretty average, D is not great, and F is, well, I don't want to remember them, but B is pretty good. I think WandaVision will do a lot for this character, even though he is dead, and I'm going to assume that he is some sort of projection. He's not the real Vision in that show, but still, I think WandaVision is going to do a lot for the character. And maybe after seeing the show, I would have bumped him up to A tier, or maybe even S tier, who knows. I like Paul Bettany a lot in the role. And for what it's worth, just given the wacky character that he is, having to be an android who is trying to figure out his own humanity while falling in love with a witch, Paul Bettany does a fantastic job. He does basically everything he can. At the same time, it is difficult to make an android likable, and while Paul Bettany does a commendable job, I keep saying that over and over again, but really, it can't be understated. We like Vision a whole lot more because of Paul Bettany. It is still a sort of one-dimensional character. It's not necessarily the fully fleshed out persona that would have elevated him to the next level. Again, we're going to get to see many more layers of Paul Bettany's Vision in the upcoming WandaVision. I hope it's great. And I like him. I like him a lot in every movie he's in, but he functions more as a MacGuffin, to be honest. Especially because, well, he has an Infinity Stone in his head. You already know Spider-Man's going in the S tier. Listen, I love Tobey Maguire and I love Andrew Garfield for different reasons, but to me, it is undeniable. For me, specifically, personally, Tom Holland is easily the best Spider-Man, and Peter Parker. And for me personally, it's not even close. It just isn't. He strikes that perfect balance between high school kid trying to figure out his own life, his dating, his relationships, and the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I adore his two films, Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home. I think they're some of the MCU's finest. And every film that he's in is just elevated. Maybe not necessarily always by him, but he always adds to the scenes. Guys, he's in Captain America Civil War, Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home. Arguably, 5 of the best MCU films in the entire 23. And it's no coincidence either, because he is pretty much front and center of almost all of the films, maybe save for Avengers Endgame. To me, Tom Holland is Spider-Man. And again, I would love Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield to return as older versions of the character, but I dearly hope that Tom Holland Spider-Man will stay for many years to come, because he is just fantastic, much like Scott Lang and Paul Rudd. The Collector, I'm gonna put in the D tier. I was considering F tier. Honestly, I don't hate him that much. It's kind of interesting though. Benicio del Toro is a fantastic actor, and he happens to be in 2 of the most iconic franchises in modern cinema, in Star Wars, The Last Jedi, and the MCU. Unfortunately, he happens to be some of my least favorite parts of both franchises. I'm not entirely sure if that's his fault, because he plays very odd characters and he makes very odd character decisions, and obviously it works much better in the MCU because, well, the Collector is weird. That being said, even though I understand that he is making purposeful character choices and making the Collector weird on purpose, it still doesn't make me like him that much better. He's interesting and he's, I guess, slimy? Is that the right word? Like, he's a guy that in the MCU I don't want to cross paths with ever. And then he dies. So I guess that's it for him. So D tier. Peggy Carter, I'm going to put in the B tier. Now, you have to keep in mind, I haven't seen Agent Carter yet. So if I had seen Agent Carter, and I probably will at some point, then she'd probably be up in the A tier, honestly speaking. And you guys can let me know how awesome she is in Agent Carter in the comments down below. But for Peggy Carter in the MCU in the films, well, she's good. She's a good love interest for Steve Rogers, and she is definitely her own woman. She's not just the complementary piece to the male hero. And I actually think that What If, when we see her in What If being Captain America or Captain Britain or whoever she is, I think we're going to get an even deeper appreciation for Peggy Carter. For now, though, I really do think that it's just a little bit too little, if that makes sense. We see her a lot, of course, in Captain America the First Avenger. She's awesome. And then she's old in Captain America the Winter Soldier, and then she's dead in Civil War. And then she just kind of pops up here and there in different places, and she's always great. And she, of course, ties together the Infinity Saga perfectly with that ending shot of Avengers Endgame. Love that. But again, just not enough to see. But trust me, if and when I see Agent Carter, my opinion is definitely going to change. I can already guarantee that. Mantis, I'm going to put in the C tier. I recognize that she's extremely funny and cute in whatever scene she's in. Like, the way she talks is supposed to be just this innocent, naive sort of humor that plays off of Drax's arrogant and snobbish sort of pretentious mannerisms, and it's funny. It works. And honestly, just objectively speaking, I would probably put her a tier or 2 higher, because she is definitely funny and she adds to a lot of the scenes that she's in. But there's nothing that excites me about seeing Mantis again. Unlike the other members of the Guardians, like if Rocket or Groot or Star-Lord were gone, I'd be like, oh, well, the Guardians just lost a major player. If Mantis was gone, I'd be like, oh, well, that sucks. Again, nothing against Pom Clementine's performance. I think she's great in the role. You're going to hear that a lot because I do think that the actors are playing the roles exactly how they intended to. It's just that, well, sometimes the end result is not always to my liking. Again, subjectivity, this is my tier list, so I make the rules. That sounded really arrogant. I didn't mean it like that. You guys know what I mean. Anyways, moving on. Ulysses Claw, I think I'm going to put in the B tier, but it's close. I was really thinking about putting him in the A tier. Now look, obviously, given everything, given a backstory and the screen time and just how little he is there and how little screen time he's given, obviously he wouldn't probably be this high. But again, subjectivity, and like I said, I'm looking at what does the actor and the character do in the limited screen time that he's given. And, you know, Andy Serkis is in 2 movies, Avengers Age of Ultron and Black Panther, but he steals almost every scene he's in those 2 films. Like, it's incredible to watch. You're sort of just hypnotized by his goofiness and over-the-topness, but there's just this menace and maniacal side to him that is just so fun to watch, honestly. Like the reference to his SoundCloud playlist. And honestly, if he was just in Black Panther a little bit more, or just one other MCU project, he probably would have gone up to the A tier because I like this character way too much, and I like Andy Serkis way too much. I was really sad to see him go in Black Panther. Although, well, he's busy filming Venom 2, and that's probably going to be part of the MCU as well, so we'll see him again, I'm sure, maybe just as a director. Hank Pym, I'm going to put in the C tier. Honestly, I love Michael Douglas, I do. I don't love the character of Hank Pym. He's filling that sort of Obi-Wan role, right? The mentor in The New Hope. And he does it great. You know, you love to see him mentor Scott and be sort of that overarching father figure, but, you know, I can't help but think that it's about time this character moves on. Because obviously the trope with the old mentor character is that they're there, and then they die, because they serve their purpose. And I think Hank Pym really has just about served his purpose in the MCU. I'm not sure, and I think a third Ant-Man film would be just about right. If he stays longer, unless he has some really pivotal and unique creative role in the future of the MCU that I'm not aware of, which I'm sure is possible, Kevin Feige is a creative guy. Otherwise, I think Ant-Man 3 is about it for Hank Pym. I liked him a lot, but I think we're ready to see Ant-Man and the Wasp and Stature take over, for good. Gamora, I'm going to put in the C tier. And again, it's another one of those that it was very close. It was. I was close to putting her in the B tier. Look, everything on paper points to her being in the B or the A tier. Zoe Saldana is a fantastic actress. She's gotten a lot of character development in the Infinity Saga. Her character has really grown from the beginning to where it ended in Infinity War. And I guess we'll carry on in Guardians 3, maybe. I'm not particularly attached to her as a character. Like, when she died in Infinity War, I was more moved actually by Thanos' emotion than Gamora dying, which is kind of shocking. It's like saying, oh yeah, I was more drawn to Hawkeye crying than Natasha being dead on the ground. Now, obviously, you're sad because Black Widow just died, but in Gamora's case, while I was sad the character died, I wasn't particularly devastated. I was like, oh, that was a sacrifice that Thanos had to make, and it's sad that the Guardians lost a member, but it is Infinity War. And I don't know, there's just something to be desired. Like, she just never had that one scene that made me go, oh, she is the fiercest woman in the galaxy. They keep saying it, but honestly, I never saw it. A little disappointing, but we'll see her again, I'm sure. Now, this tier list has all 3 versions of Groot, so Baby Groot is going in the S tier. Because how could he not go in the S tier? Seriously, how could he not go in the S tier? Say what you will about Guardians 2, and say what you will about Groot in general, but I think a lot of us would agree that Baby Groot was one of the best parts of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. To this day, I maintain that the opening scene of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the best opening of any MCU film. Any MCU film. Ever. Going up against the likes of Infinity War, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Endgame. No, Guardians 2, the dancing Groot scene, the best. I mean, just look at this. How could he not go in the S tier? Bruce Banner, and not the Hulk, Bruce Banner, we're going to see the Hulk later, is going in the B tier. Bruce Banner is confusing. Because I love Mark Ruffalo. I do. And I like the character of Bruce Banner. I do. And just looking at Bruce Banner, not the Hulk, we see a lot more of him obviously later on in Infinity War and a little bit in Endgame. Something's off about him. I think what I really love about the character of the Hulk is the angsty personality. The real internal struggle that he has, you know? Honestly, Avengers Bruce Banner is probably still my favorite Bruce Banner because he is conflicted. He doesn't know what he wants and he just thinks, I don't want to Hulk out. but then later embraces it and goes, yeah, maybe I should be helping these people, you know? And even in Age of Ultron, he's still struggling with the Hulk persona. And then Taika Waititi, in typical Taika fashion, whether it's good or bad, turned Bruce Banner into a comedian. And honestly, Bruce Banner was kind of dumb in Thor Ragnarok, which is funny because they make light of the fact that he has, 7 PhDs? But he was just kind of the dumb earthling in the world of gods and aliens. And then in Infinity War, he was just still a little bit bumbling. And Endgame, well, is Endgame. We'll talk about Hulk a little bit later. So as much as I love Bruce Banner, and as much as I loved him in the first Avengers, I can't put him much higher in the B tier. And honestly, I don't know where this character goes from here. I don't know if we'll ever see Bruce Banner again. We're going to see Hulk again. Bruce Banner, I don't know. We'll see. Valkyrie, I'm going to put in the C tier. This is a character that I'm very on the fence about, and it's really because we haven't seen anything of her, really. We've seen her in one movie, and then she's made a couple appearances here and there. So Thor Love and Thunder is really going to be the tiebreaker, whether or not she goes down or she goes up, because I like Tessa Thompson, and I think the Valkyrie character is interesting. I just don't know if I'm that attached to the character as of yet. She did a great job in Thor Ragnarok. She really did stand on her own. I just haven't seen enough of her yet, honestly. And her acting is, well, she's trying to put a British accent on, and it's admirable. It works, although it does take me out of the movie sometimes, but, you know, she does her job. She's a fun new character that could go in a lot of interesting ways. She's going to be the King of Asgard, I hear. That's exciting. Just as a character, though, I'm not entirely sure that I'm invested yet. We'll see in Thor Love and Thunder. James Buchanan Barnes, I'm going to put in the C tier. And this may upset a lot of people, but so be it, because here's the deal. I think the backstory and the motivation is there. I do. I think Bucky has some of the richest character development out of anybody in the entire MCU. It's there on paper. And for what it's worth, Sebastian Stan plays Bucky about as well as you could given the direction I'm sure he was given. Like in The Winter Soldier, I'm sure he was given the direction of look intimidating and shoot the gun and fight people. And in Civil War, I'm sure he was given the direction of be confused and be conflicted and don't talk much and then just fight. So we really don't get to see the personality. We haven't seen the personality since Captain America the First Avenger, and we see it in the trailer for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I'm excited. I'm really excited because I think it could bump him up to B tier easily. Because at the end of the day, when I think about Bucky, I think of just this monotone, kind of boring character, which is not Sebastian Stan's fault. That's just the way the character was written thus far, but I'm excited to see that personality and the charisma return again, which, again, we saw in Captain America the First Avenger. I liked him a lot in that movie. Just haven't seen it since. So for now, C tier, but I'm ready to bump him up as soon as I see Falcon and Winter Soldier. I am. M'Baku in the B tier. Very similar to Ulysses Claw. I think that given the screen time that he had in Avengers Infinity War and Black Panther, of course, I think he did a great job. Winston Duke did. Now, whether or not the future of the character and if he's going to be the next Black Panther, I'm not taking any of that into consideration. I don't know what's going to happen. But from what I've seen of him, and even in Avengers Endgame, he let out that yell and he was fighting. We saw that. I love the character. He obviously doesn't have a ton of character development, but he's so funny and so charismatic in the scenes that he's in. And his camaraderie with Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, and T'Challa is, well, it's great. It's one of the best parts of Black Panther, honestly. Like, you feel it when he comes to the aid of the Wakandans and the Avengers in Infinity War. You know, he understands what's at stake. So honestly, whether or not he is Black Panther or just M'Baku, I am so excited to see him again in the MCU, and I love the character. What can I say? The Red Skull, I'm going to put in the C tier. Now, you may be thinking about Avengers Infinity War and thinking, oh yeah, when we saw Red Skull, what about that? Honestly, it was shocking, and it was a pleasant surprise, because we hadn't seen Red Skull in a long time, but honestly, it was mostly just shock value because it's Red Skull, and who even saw that coming? Listen, like I said in my review for Captain America the First Avenger, I think Hugo Weaving gave a great performance. But he's a Nazi. And, you know, it's a Nazi versus an American. It's pretty clear who you're supposed to be rooting for, right? And again, for his part, Hugo Weaving plays the Red Skull, well, pretty great. He's supposed to be a maniacal Nazi, and he is. And yes, there is a little bit of the backstory there, like he wanted to be as powerful and he took the super soldier serum, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, he's just a Nazi. And so while I like the character and I would be interested in seeing him again because I think that there is possibility, I do have to look at just what I've seen thus far. And what I've seen thus far is a cool character that really didn't get a lot of time to shine. Is this even a question? Captain America, of course, goes in the S tier. Any Marvel fans out there who don't put him in the S tier? Well, I'm not invalidating your opinion, but I'd like to talk to you because why? What's that line that Bucky says, or Captain America says in the first Avenger? He says, "Are you ready to go to the jaws of death with Captain America?" And honestly, I think after seeing him in the 23 films, yeah, I think we all would be. Let me just sum it up like this, because I could go on and on about Captain America, and I'm sure we all could, but let me sum it up by this. There's that one scene in Avengers Endgame where Captain America has been beaten and brutalized and just demolished by Thanos, and the shield is cracked, he's on the ground, he's bleeding, and the whole army is about to just demolish this one man, just destroy him. And he gets up, he fastens the straps, he pulls it together, and he walks forward to face the entire army by himself. That's Captain America. I'm just gonna put him here, you know? No, honestly though, you know what? Like I said, this is so subjective, and just judging characters based on what they've done in their screen time. Come on, Goose the Cat was awesome. He was, I think, just easily the best part of Captain Marvel for me. Like, when he ate the Tesseract for the first time, I was just laughing so hard. Goose the Cat is just iconic. Come on. Speaking of Captain Marvel, though, she's gonna go in the C tier. So, here's the deal. In Captain Marvel, I think she's about a B tier, you know? She's pretty good. I like Brie Larson a lot, actually, in the first Captain Marvel movie. Unfortunately, she's closer to a D or an F in Avengers Endgame because I really hate her in Avengers Endgame. And if Marvel is really pushing for her to be, you know, the front piece of the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward, well, I'm a little nervous, honestly. Are we gonna get the Captain Marvel? Or are we gonna get the Avengers Endgame Captain Marvel? I'm not entirely sure. Because chronologically, Avengers Endgame came the most recently, but Captain Marvel is the performance that came the most recently. So which Brie Larson am I going to get? Just like with some of the other characters, like Valkyrie, for instance, Captain Marvel for me is going to hinge upon Captain Marvel 2, or whatever her next appearance is, because that's going to give me a better idea as to which version of the character that we're going to get. So for now, C tier. Phil Coulson, I'm going to put in the B tier. I like Clark Gregg a lot. I haven't seen any of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I've seen a little bit, actually. Didn't love it, but I think he's pretty much the best part of it. I think a lot of people who love the show can agree with that. But even just in the MCU, when he pops up here and there and he gives snarky remarks to Tony Stark and tells him he's not his babysitter or whatever, and of course just being the linchpin that ties everything together in the first Avengers, I mean, he's a great character, and honestly, you know, he's one of the few characters in Phase 1 that wasn't taken from the comics, I think. And for what it's worth, he popped up more than Nick Fury did, actually. In Phase 1 at least, and so I actually grew attached to him a lot. I like the character a lot, I do. Quicksilver, I'm gonna put in the D tier. Look, honestly, it's not that I didn't like him. He's pretty close to C tier for me. But just how unmemorable this character was. Like when you see Age of Ultron, you remember, oh yeah, Quicksilver, there he is. He's fine, I guess, but man, he's just so generic. And subjectivity, right? Maybe this is just me, but having seen X-Men Days of Future Past right before Age of Ultron, I went, you know, Quicksilver could have been a lot better than that. And while the sacrifice is cool, we really didn't get enough time to connect with his characters. Honestly, at the end of the day, his death was really just to propel Wanda Maximoff forward. Just being completely honest, I'm sure he's going to come back in WandaVision, whether or not it's actually him or as a reference, probably just as a reference, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite character ever. Korath, I'm going to also put in the D tier. Look, I get that Jaimon Hansu is a fantastic actor. He gave an incredible performance in Blood Diamond. Look, at the end of the day, I'm going off of what I've seen in the MCU. He's been in 2 films, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and Captain Marvel. I really didn't like him in either one, especially in Guardians 1. I don't know what his performance was. He was kind of just yelling all his lines and trying to be as cheesy as possible. It's like that actor who is trying to make fun of the fact that he's in a space movie and he's like, yeah, look at me, I'm in a space movie, I gotta be a bad guy. That was Jaimon Hansu. That was also Lee Pace. We'll talk about Ronan in just a second, but yeah. Our first A tier, Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, going in the A tier. Why not the S tier, you ask? Good question. Honestly, I'm not sure, and the reason is because, well, I just never got as attached to the Black Widow character as a lot of other people did. Like, for example, if Steve Rogers jumped off that cliff on Vormir, I would have been just devastated. And I was pretty devastated when Iron Man died. When Black Widow died, I was very sad. I really was. I did not expect that at all. It was so sudden, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. But I wasn't bawling my eyes out. And when the Black Widow movie was announced, I was like, oh, huh. And part of the reason is, well, she's dead, yes, and we're going to see a prequel movie right after she died, which is an interesting move. But the other part of the reason is just, well, she wasn't necessarily my all-time favorite character. That being said, she is an OG Avenger, and she's not in the A tier just because she's an OG Avenger, but because the way that Scarlett Johansson plays the character, you can see how much Scarlett Johansson developed as an actress throughout the 23 movies. Iron Man 2, she was fine. She was okay. By the time you get to Avengers Endgame, with that scene where she's talking to Rhodey about Hawkeye, that was actually one of the best scenes in the entire movie, and it was carried by Scarlett Johansson. And so her death was impactful. It really was. And again, A tier is great, by the way. Don't mistake A tier for, not being the S tier. It's fantastic. And I really do like the Black Widow character. And I am excited now to see the Black Widow film. I think maybe the pandemic has something to do with that, but I genuinely am excited to see Scarlett Johansson again on the big screen. Ego, I'm going to put probably in the C tier. Look, Kurt Russell does a good job. He's a great actor and he gave a good performance. He did. And there are some really nice moments in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, especially when he's playing catch with Peter Quill. That was one of my favorite scenes in that entire movie, actually. It just sort of felt weird, though. It sort of felt like there was a lot of lost potential. And again, it's hard for me because I sort of have to balance out good performance, bad character, bad performance, good character. In this case, good performance, sort of generic character, like he just wants to take over the universe with his seeds or whatever. And cover each planet with goo, I guess. That part is, it's just covered the planet with goo, really? I don't know what that was going to do. It would have been better if Ego was like, yeah, and I'm going to terraform the universe, and he gives this grand vision of how he wants the universe to look like, but visually it just looked like he was trying to cover all the planets with goo, and I don't know about that. But hey, on a different note, the Grandmaster is going in the A tier. I was skeptical, to say the least, to hear that Jeff Goldblum was going to be in an MCU film, because I love Jeff Goldblum, but I wasn't sure if his personality was going to fit in with the MCU. Turns out, he was actually one of the best parts of Thor Ragnarok. I loved Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster. I really hope he comes back in Thor Love and Thunder in some capacity. Because look, Thor Ragnarok is crazy. It's a wild movie. And Jeff Goldblum is a wild guy. So he fits in so well. The improv style of Thor Ragnarok, he's just going off the rails. Taika Waititi just let Jeff Goldblum be Jeff Goldblum. And honestly, for that film, that's probably what was best for everything. Just everything. He eats up every single scene he's in. And with that, that's 25 characters done. So if you're still here watching, thank you so much. And here's a clip from the MCU. I don't know what I'm going to edit in here, but enjoy as we move on to the next 25.
3 years at San Quentin, huh?
You found out.
Baskin-Robbins always finds out.
All right, and we're back, and kicking it off with a bang is Galaga Guy, who I'm going to put in the A tier. Yeah, listen, he was in there for, 2 seconds? But Galaga Guy is iconic. And like I said, meme ability, is that a word? Meme ability is a big factor, And Galaga Guy is basically the biggest meme from the Avengers. So yeah, I'm going to put him in the A tier, next to Black Widow. Adult Groot, I think I'm going to put in the B tier. I like Adult Groot, I do. I'm not sure I love Adult Groot, though. There are some scenes where he's great. Obviously, the We Are Groot ending to that character was, it was great. Some scenes are just kind of cringy, though. Although I will say, when I was watching the films again for the, 20th time or whatever, and I saw the scene where Groot threw out the battery while Rocket was explaining his whole plan, and Rocket got all frustrated, that actually did make me laugh. It hadn't made me laugh before, other than the first time I saw it, but yeah, it made me laugh. Something about this character, I don't know, whether he's too childish, or he eats flowers and twigs off his arms, I don't know. Definitely wasn't my favorite iteration of Groot, though, he was okay. Ooh, Nebula. I'm gonna put her in the C tier. And yeah, this is one of the cases where it's probably gonna differ based on different criteria. I get it, backstory, she got a ton of development in Avengers Endgame. On the whole, though, I think Karen Gillan is a good actress, but I don't really like her a lot in the Avengers films or the Guardians films. Her performance is interesting. It's very breathy and very angry, and I hate my sister, and yeah, I don't know. Something about that's just not appealing to me. I don't hate the character, and I'm glad she's going to be a part of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. She, though, is not the main draw by any stretch of the imagination. I thought she was a good pairing with Tony Stark at the beginning, and we got to see some tender sides to her, but again, not my favorite character. Drax, on the other hand, I'm going to put in the B tier. Now, yes, I've said before, I am disappointed because he is not the Destroyer, and I would really love to see Drax the Destroyer, However, you can't deny that Dave Bautista is just hilarious in the role. Whether or not the scene warrants him being hilarious, he's absolutely hilarious in basically every scene that he's in. So while I don't love the character of Drax, I love Dave Bautista as Drax. And he manages to steal a good portion of all the scenes he's in. Like, why is Gamora shouldn't have worked. On paper, who would have written that joke and thought it would have been funny, but it worked because Dave Bautista is Dave Bautista, so, you know. Hela, I'm going to put in the C tier. It's basically for the same reasons as Red Skull. I know, Cate Blanchett is a world-class actress. She is phenomenal, just like Hugo Weaving, both Lord of the Rings alums, by the way. But Hela is a very one-dimensional character, just like how Johann Schmidt, Red Skull, is a pretty one-dimensional, Nazi. Hela is a pretty one-dimensional, I'm just gonna kill you. I'm the goddess of death. How much more on the top, on the nose, could you get? So while I enjoyed her rapport with her brother Thor, that rhymed, wow. Thor 4, more Thor, rapport with Hela, Gore, the God Butcher. Okay, anyways. Yeah, I just, something about the character just made me not want to see her again on screen. I'm not entirely sure what it is. Happy Hogan is going in the A tier. And quite frankly, he probably could have and maybe should have gotten the S tier. I'm just being a little conservative here because it's Jon Favreau. I get it. I'm not ranking Jon Favreau. I'm ranking Happy Hogan, but don't tell anybody, but Happy Hogan is Jon Favreau, who directed Iron Man 1 and basically started off the entire MCU. And ironically, he is in the first MCU movie and the last one in the Infinity Saga, which is actually really cool. He's been in Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home. That's pretty incredible, honestly. So while Happy Hogan is not my favorite character of all time, whenever I see him, honestly, I see less of Happy Hogan and I see more of Jon Favreau. And for Jon Favreau, we have to just give our immense and complete gratitude for starting off the MCU the way he did. And also for The Mandalorian, but, there's that. Howard Stark, I'm probably going to put in the D tier. Howard Stark has never been my favorite character, I'm going to be honest. Whether or not you're talking about Dominic Cooper or John Slattery, he's come off as a little bit arrogant and bullish, and that's probably on purpose because Tony Stark has this conflict with his dad. I just never liked the character. Even Dominic Cooper felt like Iron Man light, which I think, he did his best, right? To be reminiscent of Iron Man while also not being Iron Man and being a Stark, but also not being Tony Stark. And then John Slattery's version of the character was just the prick dad. So I think it's cool when we get to see Howard Stark because he usually plays an interesting role in the character development or even in the story. I don't necessarily love that we get to see Howard Stark, if that makes any sense. He's usually pivotal to the story, but, it's just not always the most entertaining to see John Slattery or Dominic Cooper. That's all. Hulk, I am going to put in the B tier. And here's why. I think Avengers Hulk is great. I'm not really counting Incredible Hulk because that would probably drag Hulk down to the C tier, and I don't want to do that. So, starting from the Avengers, I think Avengers Hulk is even S tier Hulk. I think Age of Ultron Hulk is, A to B tier. He's good, pretty good. I think Ragnarok Hulk, though, is interesting because the character in the movie, I like him. He's A or B tier, but then if you kind of look at where he's come from, right? From the Avengers where he's this angry machine, and Thor Ragnarok, he's kind of this childish baby, which is kind of funny, I guess. And then Infinity War, B to C, because, the action scene at the beginning is awesome, but he kind of, just disappears. And then there's Endgame, which, look, I love Ruffalo. I would have to put him in C or D tier because, I wish we got a Berserker Hulk. I really do. It's sort of like Luke Skywalker for a lot of people, wishing that they get to see the really cool version of him in The Last Jedi, and then we get to see him in The Mandalorian. I wish we got to see the full-out Berserk Hulk in Avengers Endgame. So that all kind of balances out to B tier. I think he's good, but I just wish he was better. Thor, I'm gonna squeeze him just past the A tier and put him in the S tier. Avengers Endgame, I didn't love Thor at all, and I'm making a whole separate video about that. Hopefully it'll be out in the near future. But at the end of the day, I can overlook that because here's the deal, right? Thor 1 Thor is probably C. Thor 2 Thor is C or B. Avengers Thor is A, maybe. Age of Ultron Thor is maybe B. But then Thor Ragnarok came out, and that Thor is easily S tier. And then Infinity War, if there was a tier above S tier, he is S plus tier, SS tier, whatever you want to say. So You know, at the end of the day, while Avengers Endgame was the most recent Thor that we got, look, I understand that the potential of Thor is just through the roof. We got to see it in Infinity War, and that is still my favorite Thor ever. He is an OG Avenger. He has stuck it out through bleached eyebrows. Way to go, Chris Hemsworth. I gotta put him in S tier, you know? I'm gonna sort of turn a blind eye to Endgame in this case, just looking at it holistically. But again, we could have a whole different conversation about Endgame Thor, and we will, someday. Teen Groot, I'm probably gonna put in the C tier. Yes, I know he's supposed to be annoying, and that's part of his character, but doesn't, make him more likable or anything. It's probably my least favorite iteration of the character, just being completely honest. And while yes, I understand he didn't really get a ton of screen time, he didn't do a lot. From what I've seen, not the biggest fan of Teen Groot. Hopefully he changes in the next appearance, which I guess is Thor Love and Thunder. I don't know. Vin Diesel's been talking about Alpha Groot. I don't know what that means, but it sounds exciting, so we'll see. Oh boy, the Mandarin / Trevor Slattery I'm going to put in the D tier. Because while I didn't love the twist, not because of the twist, but because what I thought we were going to get instead, the terrorist actual Mandarin, looked a lot better to me than what they actually gave us. Subversion of expectation, folks. It's all about giving us something better than what we expected. In this case, not really the case. So while he's not F tier, because I do think Trevor Slattery is pretty funny, and the fake Mandarin is really scary, so he wasn't awful to watch, I still walked out of Iron Man 3 disappointed. Very disappointed. And for that reason, I guess D for disappointment, I suppose. Eric Killmonger going in the S tier. To me, this is the definition of a brilliant villain. I mean, because he challenges T'Challa in every way that a hero should be challenged. So say what you want about Black Panther, but I think that Killmonger is easily one of the best comic book movie villains of the past 10 to 15 years. I do. Is he enough to rival Thanos? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe. But he's definitely enough to be in the same tier as Thanos, and that's good enough for me because, again, Michael B. Jordan delivers just a brilliant performance. I'll put Korg in the A tier. I would have put him in the S tier probably if it would just been for Ragnarok, but seeing him in Avengers Endgame wasn't the best thing. I mean, he's funny. He's always funny. Taika Waititi is hilarious. But playing Fortnite, that was probably one of my least favorite scenes in the entire film. I don't know. Guys, Marcus and McFeely, is Fortnite really relevant in 2023? I have my own issues with Endgame. Anyways. However, Thor Ragnarok, we all love Korg. He was probably one of the best parts of Thor Ragnarok. And Taika Waititi, again, brilliant. I hope he comes back in Thor Love and Thunder because he knows what to do with, well, his own character. So I'm really excited to see if they go anywhere with him. Maybe not. But even if he's just a side character who makes the goofy jokes, I'm totally fine with that. Kraglin, yes, Kraglin, I'm actually going to put in the A tier. This is as subjective can get. I remember watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, maybe for the second time in theaters with a couple friends, and the moment when he goes, "Happy Trails," and just voice cracks everything, he's like, "Thanks." When he's talking to Peter, I don't know. Something about that was just so funny to me. And every scene he's in, he's just funny. James Gunn's brother, Sean, he's so funny. So I actually do hope we get to see him again, because every scene that he's been in, I've actually really enjoyed, and I've laughed out loud. He's been the source of some pretty funny memes. At least for me. So, Just like with Gamora, I'm actually going to put Star-Lord in the C tier. Look, I don't hate Chris Pratt. I don't hate Chris Pratt's performance, but there's something left to be desired with the Star-Lord character. He's turned into a running joke, let's be honest. The Guardians fit in really well as a side character in themselves. Like the entire Guardians as a unit in the Avengers films, they fit in really well as that little side character. Am I necessarily excited to see them all again on their own as their own team? I'm not sure. I'm really excited to see them pop up as side characters again in Thor Love and Thunder. In Guardians 3, I don't know. Chris Pratt is good, and he had some really good moments in Infinity War, and he's funny. But again, the character's kind of become a joke. And so, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the character. Maybe this is another scenario of make or break. Maybe when we see him again in Thor Love and Thunder, I'll decide again, and Guardians 3 I'll decide again, but who knows. Okay guys, quick aside, the screen is getting kind of full as you can see, so we're going to be scrolling a little bit from here on out. I hope you guys are okay with that, just bear with me. I hope that it'll be easy to follow where I'm going with this. Okay, next character. Nick Fury, I will put in the A tier, because it's Nick Fury. He's basically the in-universe Jon Favreau, if you will. And of course, Samuel L. Jackson is awesome. Isn't it crazy? He was in Iron Man 1, and he's going to go all the way through to Secret Invasion and probably beyond whenever Secret Invasion comes out. So from 2008 to 2023? Oh my gosh. or even 2022. That's 14 years? That's incredible. Samuel L. Jackson is great, and we have him to thank for just bringing the Avengers together. So everywhere he shows up, he's a welcome addition. Always good to see some more Nick Fury. Rocket Raccoon is in the C tier, but it's close. It's very close. Because to me, Rocket Raccoon has the most potential out of any of the characters in the MCU, or in the Guardians of the Galaxy, rather. And I think James Gunn knows that, because he has said that we are going to explore Rocket Raccoon's backstory in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think that is really exciting. Because look, right now, Rocket Raccoon is just a snarky raccoon. That's all he is. He had some character development in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but otherwise, he and Groot are just, the snarky side characters in the Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's okay. They do well in that role. But I'd like to see some more, and I think we will get to see some more, and that's exciting to me. So for now, C tier. But again, if I ever redo this sort of tier list again, expect him to be in the B or the A tier. I just have a feeling. Clint Barton is going in the A tier. All you Hawkeye haters out there, get mad in the comments because I love Hawkeye. I do. Hawkeye is without a doubt one of my favorite characters in the MCU. It's just, well, he's also not the favorite character of the MCU. Like, the S tier is reserved for the characters that I just adore and love. I love Hawkeye. I can't say that he is just the absolute best of the best of the best of the MCU, but I love him as a character. I am actually really excited to see him in his own series. And for what it's worth, for all of the Age of Ultron haters out there, I really love the farm scene. I do. I think that character development is so important in big films like this, and I think that Joss Whedon fighting for the farm scene, whatever you think of Joss Whedon himself, I think that Joss Whedon was right and good to fight for that farm scene because it gave so much depth to the character of Clint Barton. I love that. Next up is Falcon, who I'm going to put in the C tier. Another one of those characters that I really think can be elevated by their own solo series, or I guess team series with the Winter Soldier, and I think that is the point of these series. I think Kevin Feige knows that very well, that these side characters can really be elevated by having their own time on screen. However, Anthony Mackie's performance is interesting because it's more of Anthony Mackie. I don't see Sam Wilson quite yet, I see Anthony Mackie. Which, Anthony Mackie is a likable guy, but he has his own persona, and, well, Sam Wilson and Anthony Mackie are not quite distinct to me yet. Whereas, like, for example, Chris Evans and Captain America are very distinct characters to me. Chris Evans is the real guy, and he's playing Captain America to me. Sam Wilson is still just Anthony Mackie. I'm excited, though, to see some more of his backstory. I think we're going to get to see his family in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it looked like from the trailers, and so, yeah, sign me up. And also, by the way, each time he's on screen, they make sure to make his wings even cooler. So it's been getting progressively just cooler and cooler and cooler. Like in The Winter Soldier, it was pretty cool. Civil War, he did that shield thing where he, hid behind it and launched those rockets. Infinity War, not really, but Endgame, he did that stabbing thing. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier just looks incredible. So I'm excited. I really am. King T'Challa, Black Panther, S tier. Listen, who knows if I would have put him up there without the passing of Chadwick Boseman, but I think I might have, honestly. But that's irrelevant at this point because Chadwick Boseman passed away. And for what it's worth, I think his performance as T'Challa was amazing. But even more than that, what he brought to the MCU was, I think, equally amazing. And what he brought to the rest of the world was just beyond what he could have done on screen. What he was, who he was as a cultural icon and impact, is what Chadwick Boseman will be remembered by. So, for all of the people talking about recasting and stuff, that's fine. That's totally fine. But let's all remember that Chadwick Boseman, as a person, not as a black person or not as Black Panther, but as a person has passed away. And so, we have to honor that, right? That part of the situation. But at any rate, Black Panther, I think, is a great character. And I'm sad to see Chadwick Boseman and maybe T'Challa go. And hopefully the Black Panther franchise will still be as good as ever. But Chadwick Boseman certainly left his mark on the MCU and the rest of the world. Pepper Potts, I'll also put in the B tier, though it's relatively close actually to the A tier. But much like Peggy Carter, I think she's a really good anchor for Tony Stark. I just don't think she's her own character as much as Peggy Carter is, so that's why she's sort of on the same tier, but she also got a lot more screen time. So again, that's sort of where it balances out for me. I think they tried to do a lot of interesting things with the character, like make her CEO in Iron Man 2. I just don't think it worked out. I think Gwyneth Paltrow kind of realized that, and she was like, yeah, maybe not for me. But of course she came back, and, well, it made for really emotional scenes in Avengers Endgame, so we have to thank her for that, right? She's an integral part of the MCU. And she did a great job, Gwyneth Paltrow did. First F tier, Ronan the Accuser, F. Do I think Ronan does what he was there to do in Guardians of the Galaxy 1? Absolutely. I don't think James Gunn was asking for Shakespeare villains here. I really don't. Then again, even though what he was asking for was not a Shakespeare villain, Ronan the Accuser is just one of my least favorite villains in the MCU. I just think, look, Lee Pace was sort of like, hey, I'm in a space movie. Let's just ham it up, Like, what are you doing? That sort of thing. I don't know. I personally don't like him a lot. I know a lot of people don't mind him as much as I do. And I was sort of excited to see him in Captain Marvel because I was hoping for a better version of the character. Unfortunately, he shows up for 5 seconds. So, yeah. I'm going to put Wanda Maximoff in the A tier. And trust me, I am willing to bet anything in the world that she's going to be in the S tier after WandaVision. By the way, this video is probably going to come out during WandaVision, so you guys enjoying it? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm sure I am. I don't know that, though. Me from the future. Anyways, yeah. So what Wanda Maximoff is lacking that would have put her in the S tier in this tier list is, well, her powers are not that defined. And also, we haven't really explored a deeper level to Wanda Maximoff. She's had a lot of bad things happen to her, but, we haven't really seen that manifest yet. Well, Kevin Feige is going to address those 2 things in WandaVision. So, count me in, because otherwise she would totally be in the S tier. I love this character a lot. I'll put Shuri in the B tier. I know a lot of people are talking about Shuri right now because of the whole Black Panther situation. I'm just going off of what we've seen in the MCU thus far. I really like Shuri. I like Letitia Wright a lot. She hasn't gotten a lot of development. That's the biggest thing. So, we don't know a lot about her, but she steals basically every scene that she's in Black Panther. Whether or not that would make her a good Black Panther is a completely different discussion that we are not having in this video that you can feel free to have in the comments down below. But yeah, I love the character. She's great, and she's a great foil to Chadwick Boseman. Unfortunately, he passed away, so we'll have to see how she holds up on her own. But for now, from what we've seen in Avengers Infinity War and Black Panther, I love the character. I do. Of course, Stan Lee, S tier. Nuff said? Nuff said. And if you guys are still here, well, we've just completed another 25, the first 50 down. If you're still watching, if you've been watching the whole way, thank you guys so much for the support. This video is crazy long, but it took a long time to make, a lot of effort, a lot of time, so I would really appreciate if you would support the video. Here is another Marvel clip as we head on to the next 25. Alright, kicking off the next 25, we have Doctor Strange, who I'm going to put in the A tier. Doctor Strange is a very cool character, let's not lie. And what's really neat about the character is that it feels almost as if we haven't even begun to tap into the potential that he has with his magic powers. I mean, we thought he was cool in his own solo movie, and then we saw him in Avengers Infinity War, and that was just mind-blowing. So to think that we have more Doctor Strange coming, especially in a film called The Multiverse of Madness, is just so exciting. But even still, just given what we've seen so far, Benedict Cumberbatch is a perfect and great Doctor Strange. He plays a great foil to Tony Stark in Infinity War, and I'm super excited to see him lead us into the multiverse because, well, maybe this is possible. Good old Loki is, of course, going in the S tier. Loki is just one of those characters, right? When you think the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you think of Iron Man, Captain America, and often you can think of Loki. He is just quintessential villain slash anti-hero slash just trickster. And Tom Hiddleston knows exactly who the character is. He's been playing the character since 2011. When the Loki show comes out, it will have been 10 years. He knows the Loki character forwards and backwards. And it's been great to see him grow throughout the MCU, first in the first Thor movie when he was sort of an anti-hero turned villain. In the Avengers, he was just a full-blown villain. Thor the Dark World, sort of an anti-hero. Thor Ragnarok turning into a hero, in Avengers Infinity War, he dies a true hero. It's just such a good character arc. And no matter which stage of Loki you're at, he plays the character so well, and seeing the trailer for Loki just makes me so excited to see him again. Didn't know you missed him until he was gone. And you didn't know you needed him again until you saw the Loki trailer. That's basically where we're at. War Machine, I'm going to put in the B tier. Now, what differentiates a character like War Machine from a character like Falcon? Well, to be quite honest, it's probably longevity. And maybe the fact that I like Don Cheadle's performance as War Machine maybe a little bit more than Anthony Mackie's as Falcon. And the reason that I'm equating these two characters is just because they happen to be the sidekicks to Iron Man and Captain America and are now coming into their own in a show like Armor Wars and a show like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I just think that War Machine has been around longer, that War Machine has his own personality, right? James Rhodes is a person. And maybe not so much a caricature. Sometimes I feel like Anthony Mackie is just playing a version of himself, like I mentioned before. I do feel like Don Cheadle has figured out the character of War Machine well enough to just play him so comfortably. And so while War Machine is not necessarily my favorite character, I do have to give it to Don Cheadle because this character, based on his performance throughout Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Avengers Age of Ultron, Captain America Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, really did start to grow on me actually. Again, not my absolute favorite character. I love the costumes though, especially towards the end. Those were great, but a solid side character who I think could easily step into a larger role, though I don't know if a Tony Stark-sized role, but still a larger role. The Ancient One, I guess C tier. This character is really hard to rank because I do love Tilda Swinton. I think the Ancient One is very powerful. We saw that a little bit at the beginning of Doctor Strange. At the same time, I'm not entirely sure what to make of this character. Honestly, I could have put her in the B tier. I could have put her, I don't know, in the A tier, maybe? Probably not. It's just a hard character to rank. I like the character of the Ancient One, and I like Tilda Swinton. It's just something about the Ancient One doesn't make her that memorable. Like when she died in Doctor Strange, I went, oh, well, that's pushing Doctor Strange, the character, forward, but I don't know about the character itself. Then again, when she popped up in Avengers Endgame, I was genuinely happy and surprised to see her, so I don't know. Maybe I would put her in the B tier if you asked me tomorrow, but for now, I'll just stick her in the C tier. She's just fine. She's good. Of course, the one that started it all, Tony Stark, S tier. Where else would he go? I mean, Iron Man is the face of the MCU, on top of just being an insanely cool character who had such a brilliant character arc. Because if you think about it, the MCU is really one big story, the Infinity Saga at least, and honestly, the protagonist of that one big story is Tony Stark. And from beginning to end, he has such a satisfying character arc. If you smushed together the entire Infinity Saga into one big story, it's just one television series, 23 episodes, the main character is Tony Stark. He goes from billionaire genius, playboy philanthropist, someone who doesn't care about anything but making his own weapons, to sacrificing himself for the universe. That's just such great character development that they were able to make over, guys, 23 films over 11 years. How insane is that? And did I mention how cool the Iron Man armor is? Because, yeah. Except this one, because, someone just stopped rendering at a certain point. Anyways, that's not the point. Iron Man is great. Tony Stark is great. His time is over, I think. But he was certainly one of the best characters the MCU had to offer. I think I'm actually going to put Ultron in the A tier. Call me crazy, I actually really like Ultron as a villain. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people don't like Avengers Age of Ultron, which I completely understand, but me personally, there's something about the Ultron character that appeals to me, whether or not it's James Spader's performance, or just, you know, how cool he looks, or his motivations, because guys, there are motivations for this character, I think, that are actually well fleshed out, at least relatively speaking. Because, like I've said before, you have this AI program that looks at all the world events and realizes that, well, a world that is safe is a world without humans. It's evil logic, but he's technically not incorrect. And I don't know, there's just something about the Ultron character that appeals to me. Maybe I just like AI robots, or maybe I just like James Spader, I'm not entirely sure. Because yes, while his plot and his evil plan and everything else about Avengers Age of Ultron was pretty generic, I did like the character a lot. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him back again, maybe this time just given more power and, I don't know, more presence, because he kind of came off as a little Whedon-y, a little jokey in Avengers Age of Ultron, but still, I like the character quite a bit. Michael Keaton's Vulture is S tier. Again, just like Killmonger, just like Thanos, I think they're in a villain class all to themselves. I love these villains so much. The car scene in Spider-Man Homecoming says everything. He's not even in his Vulture suit. There's nothing about him that's Vulture in that movie. He's just Adrian Toomes talking to Peter Parker. And yet that scene is so intimidating. Michael Keaton just getting to show off his acting chops in full display in front of Tom Holland and the rest of us. It is phenomenal. Does he kind of go a little crazy at the end? I mean, maybe a little bit, right? But he still always manages to stay grounded. And the scene where he reveals himself to be Liz's dad, oh my goodness. Again, this is a villain who believes every single thing he is doing in the film is for a good cause, is for the safety and protection and the security of his family. And I can admire that about a villain, even though I think that he obviously went to very wrong and dangerous extremes. That's a good villain, and that's the Vulture. The Wasp, I'll put in the C tier. I don't dislike Evangeline Lilly. Then again, I don't like her. I liked her a little bit more in Ant-Man and the Wasp than I did in Ant-Man. I think a lot more, actually, though perhaps not as much as I would have liked to. Do I think there's a lot of potential for the character? Not really. I think they used all the character development in the first Ant-Man, talking about Janet Van Dyne, and they brought her back in Ant-Man and the Wasp. So honestly, for the character of the Wasp, I'm not entirely sure where they're going to go with her, to be quite honest with you, especially in a film called Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I just don't see many possible avenues for them to explore with this character. On top of that, Evangeline Lilly is just, she's fine. The Wasp is fine. It's Ant-Man with wings. She's fine. I think I'll also put Wong in the C tier, although I might be willing to move him up to the B tier. Ask me tomorrow. Maybe I will. I think Benedict Wong plays Wong exactly how, well, Wong should be played. And that is the guy who doesn't laugh and doesn't take jokes. And that was basically who he was in Doctor Strange. And it worked. He was funny. After that, well, he disappeared in Infinity War. He shows back up in Endgame. That's about it? Rumor has it that he's going to show up in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I'd actually really like to see that because it makes sense. You have a magician and you have an Asian actor, so it makes perfect sense. And if he shows up there, I'm completely on board. As of right now, though, he's fine. He's cool. Yondu Udanta, I'm going to put in the B tier. I mean, to me, it's very clear. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 really saved this character, and I think that was intentional. I think they saved a lot of character development for the second Guardians film. However, the first Guardians film does exist, and I didn't particularly like him a lot in the first Guardians film. Now, whether or not that was by design is a completely different question. That being said, I still didn't like the character that much, but Guardians of the Galaxy 2 really saved him. The ending scene with Peter Quill, that was truly emotional. Like I said in my review, that is the first time in, 15 MCU films from Iron Man to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 that I truly felt emotional for basically anything. And it was because of Yondu. So, yeah, I actually really like the character now, and he's going to stay dead. James Gunn has said that, and please make him stay dead because there's no need to revive him. So, for what it's worth, just seeing the character in those two films, he was great. Again, didn't like him as much in Guardians 1, liked him a lot in Guardians 2. B tier. Look, Aisha, I'm just going to put her in the F tier. I do enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, like I've said before. I hate the Sovereign. Just make Ego the villain. Look, it's my belief that if you're going to have many different subplots in a film, which is totally fine, they all have to connect at a certain point. Avengers Infinity War being a prime example. You have Wakanda, Nidavellir, Thanos, Titan. They all connect together at the end, right? Iron Man 2 is a bad example because, well, you have Natasha Romanoff, you have Pepper being CEO, you have Tony's heart poisoning, you have Ivan Vanko, Justin Hammer. And they don't connect very fluidly at the end. It's very similar in this case. The Sovereigns show up at the end to Ego's planet, but it's for a completely unrelated reason. And I just didn't like them. So, I don't think we're going to see much of Aisha again. I could be completely wrong. We might see her a lot in Guardians 3 with Adam Warlock, but I hope not, because I didn't like the Sovereign at all. I'm not entirely sure why they included Hogan on this list, but no, he's going in the F tier. Even out of the Warriors 3, he definitely was my least favorite. I mean, it was just comically bad in Thor Ragnarok, you know? He's like, whatever cave you came out from, go away or whatever. That was just hilarious. Maybe it was intentionally so. And, yeah, out of all of the other Warriors 3, he just, I don't know what his deal is. Like, Volstagg is the big axe guy, Fandrel's the swashbuckler, Hogan is the, spike ball guy. Look, I don't know. I honestly don't know why Hogan was included on this list. This list is pretty amazing as it is. Just a couple little quirks, and this happens to be one of them. So we'll put Hogan in the F tier. I'll put Surtur in the C tier. I think he was funny in the opening scene of Thor Ragnarok. I think he played his part extremely well. Clancy Brown, well done. And then he comes back later and destroys Asgard. Mission accomplished, I guess? I'm not clamoring for a Surtur solo Disney Plus series or a movie, but if he shows up again, I guess it would be fun. He's just a generic bad guy. There's nothing really else to say about him. He's generic, he's cool looking, he was fun. There's that. I make absolutely zero apologies for this. Luis is going in the S tier. Sorry, not sorry, but this is like the best side character to ever come out of an MCU movie, just ever. Every single scene that Michael Pena is in, he kills it. He absolutely kills it. Please, 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 Peyton Reed, have a scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania where Luis recaps the events of Endgame and the Snap with his amazing storytelling. Please, you gotta do that. And he somehow got funnier in Ant-Man and the Wasp. The whole truth serum gag, that was just absolutely hilarious. I love Michael Pena as Luis. Sorry, not sorry. S tier. Jan Rog. F tier. We had such high hopes. Everyone was talking before Captain Marvel. Is he Jan Rog? Is he Marvel? Is he going to be some secret villain? Is he going to be the Supreme Intelligence? Skrulls? Who knows? It's Jan Rog. And he's really bad. Like, really, really bad. I get it, you wanted to put the twist on with the Skrulls. I get it, you had to sacrifice some of the character development for the villain, but man, that's just the best you could have done? Really? That last confrontation in the desert where he's like, "You fight me, Veers, I got you," and then she just blasts him. I'm like, that literally was the lamest ending to a villain ever. I know he's not dead, but, you know, in that story at least. My goodness. Listen, Jude Law's a good actor. If you can put him in a better movie or a better show, if he's in Secret Invasion, fine. But just give him a good story, please. Just give him something good to do. Because in Captain Marvel, he was bad. He was really bad. Abomination's tricky, but I think I'll put him in the D tier, not the F tier. I mean, yes, on paper, to me, he's not the greatest villain. In fact, he's probably one of the worst, but there is potential here. And I think there's a reason that Marvel's bringing him back for She-Hulk. I don't know that, but I think that they see something in him that maybe the rest of us aren't seeing. And for that matter, I don't hate him. I think the ending of The Incredible Hulk is a CGI disaster. But the character of Emil Blonsky has some intrigue there. On paper, he's attached to one of my least favorite MCU movies. And therefore, I always associate him with just not good. And I still don't think he's that good. I'll give him the slight edge above the F tier, but that could change in an instant. So we'll see. Arnim Zola, I guess I'll put in the C tier. I'm not entirely sure what to make of this character either. He fits his purpose. He does exactly what he's, supposed to do in the film. Be a nervous little scientist for the Nazi army and then just be in a computer. And that's it. So he's literally not memorable at all. But it's not like he's, memorable for being bad either. He's just there. Toby Jones plays his part, plays the part well, and is out of there. So I guess I'll put him in the C tier. Joining him in the C tier is Lady Sif. Now look, I've said this before, I don't hate Lady Sif. The fact that she's returning for Thor Love and Thunder, great. I have no problems with that. At the same time, I'm not jumping out of my seat with joy the fact that Lady Sif is coming back. I think Jamie Alexander is a terrific actress. I just never had any attachment to that character, or the Warriors 3 in general for that matter. I didn't like any of them. I don't know many people that do. So again, the fact that she's returning, that's great. Bring back all the characters you want, Taika Waititi. You've earned my trust. But again, I'm just not over the moon about her. Those people who are saying she's such a better love interest than Jane Foster, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I guess I agree because Jane Foster was a pretty terrible love interest in the first 2 Thor films. So it's not like I disagree on that front. At the same time, I'm not one of those people who are like, yeah, Sif is such a better love interest. Make her be with Thor, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, pump the brakes a little bit, guys. So we'll see where this goes in Thor Love and Thunder. But yeah, there's a lot of potential for love out there. Valkyrie, Sif, Jane, Thor, Star-Lord. We'll see. Mysterio, I'm going to put in the A tier. Look, is he the best villain to ever grace the silver screen? No. Does he ham it up when he's explaining the evil plan and the backstory and the exposition? Of course he does. But you know what? Jake Gyllenhaal is a fantastic actor, and he proves it in Spider-Man Far From Home. He gives a great performance. And for what it's worth, I really genuinely do want to see him back. I hope he's not dead. I don't think he is. And you gotta admit the illusion sequence was just awesome, right? So to me, while he's not quite Vulture level or Killmonger or Thanos level, he still is one of the better Spider-Man villains in my opinion. Because I think Jake Gyllenhaal knows exactly who he's playing in the film, and he just goes for it. And honestly, I can respect that. I totally can. Yeah, Whiplash he's going in the F tier. The character had promise, I think, maybe in a different universe, in a different movie. Unfortunately, he was played by a Mickey Rourke who was just confused as to what he was supposed to be doing in the film. And I don't blame him. Maybe I do. I don't know. All I'm saying is that if you just watch the scene where he wants his bird over and over again, I think that basically tells you all you need to know about who Whiplash is. I'm going to put Alexander Pierce in the B tier, though it's close. I was thinking about A tier. Now, again, he is basically a neo-Nazi. And yeah, there's, not that much character development. This is one of the rare instances, though, where a single performance is almost enough to lift him up an entire tier. Robert Redford's performance as Alexander Pierce is so charismatic and likable that when it turns out he's the villain, you're like, oh, well, really? Wow, he was so likable from the beginning. It's incredible. I mean, that's what a high caliber actor can do for you in a film like this. Again, he is, just a Nazi. And I mean, where's the character development in that? But at the same time, Robert Redford is just incredible. Incredible. I think I'll put Odin in the C tier as well. So look, on the other end of the spectrum, you have Anthony Hopkins, who again is just a fantastic actor, one of the best in Hollywood, who is forced to wear armor that, yes, admittedly on set probably made him look ridiculous, made him feel ridiculous, and forced to say lines about ethers and infinity stones and things like that. I think he really warmed up to the Shakespearean aspect of the role in Thor 1, and he really liked doing that. I think, though, he sort of tuned out in Thor the Dark World, and even in Thor Ragnarok. I don't think he was that interested. So he wasn't necessarily my favorite part of those films either. And honestly, he did what he had to do. He rebuked his sons, he banished Thor, he embittered Loki, he imprisoned his daughter, and then he died. And honestly, when he did die, I was like, that's sad for Thor and Loki, but I'm not gonna miss Odin that much, Oof, Justin Hammer, I'm gonna put you in the D tier. But this one is interesting because it's not for a lack of trying. I think Sam Rockwell played Justin Hammer exactly the way that Jon Favreau wanted him to. I don't doubt that in the slightest. However, the Justin Hammer that Jon Favreau did want ended up being not so great, and I didn't really like the character, and I honestly don't think he fit that well in Iron Man 2 either. But you have Sam Rockwell, who is a fantastic actor. You have Justin Hammer, which is a really interesting character, admittedly, and you have him maybe appearing, most likely appearing, in the upcoming Armor Wars with James Rhodes. So you know what? Honestly, I'm intrigued. We've only seen him twice. Yes, twice. Iron Man 2 and remember All Hail the King. He made a very, very short appearance there. And I liked him enough in both of them. I could see the potential and I understood what Jon Favreau was looking at. And I can see the potential for him coming back. I definitely can. Just for now, just based on what I've seen him in Iron Man 2, I'm going to put him in the D tier. I am ready for him to change my mind, though. I'm ready for Sam Rockwell, who is an Academy Award-winning actor, to change my mind. Maria Hill, C tier. Look, I think Colby Smulders is actually really great in some of the Avengers films. It's just, well, she plays second fiddle to Nick Fury a lot, and that's fine. That's the role that she's meant to play. Honestly, I liked her a lot in The Winter Soldier, where she really got to stand on her own, had that little scene in the truck where she rescued Cap, Natasha, and Sam. Other than that, though, she's there, she's holding a gun, she's yelling orders, she's following Nick Fury. That's it. And I like her in that role, I do. Do I wish we got to see more of her? I'm not necessarily sure, maybe, but I think I like her in the role that she is. That being said, she's fine. Doesn't stand out, doesn't need to. C tier. Ironmonger, Obadiah Stane, I will also put in the C tier. Look, Jeff Bridges is so charismatic in the role. I love Jeff Bridges' performance for the first 2/3 of the movie. And I think the first 2/3 of the movie are pretty easily A tier. And then, well, the last third of the movie is like D tier. So honestly, he could have been in the B tier, and maybe he should have been. I'm being a little conservative on these rankings, if I'm being completely honest, but I like him where he's at. Because look, the first 2/3 of the movie, he was great, but he was barely in it. It really was Tony Stark's journey, And then he shows up again and he's insane. Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps, all that stuff. So while I do, again, really love Jeff Bridges and I love him in the role, I just wish the last third worked out a little better because he could have easily been in the A tier, Alright, and that was the 75th character on the tier list. If you guys are still here, have been watching all the way through, thank you guys so much. Make sure to subscribe, give this video a like, all that sort of stuff. We're going to keep going. First, here's a Marvel clip, and then we'll head on to number 76.
I'm gonna ask you this one time. Where is Gamora?
Yeah, I'll do you one better. Who's Gamora?
I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora?
Alright, let's kick off the next round with Taserface, who, I'm going to put in the A tier. Again, you can call me crazy, you can call me whatever you like, but Taserface basically stole every single scene that he was in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Whatever you think about the film, whether or not you hate it, whether or not you love it, I think Taserface, while yes, maybe not the most integral part of the story, I will give you that, was perhaps one of the biggest scene stealers of that entire movie, probably next to Baby Groot. I mean, the whole gag between him and Rocket Raccoon had me laughing so hard when I saw it for the first time, and it is still just one of the best scenes in the movie. Like I said before, with some of these characters, I'm looking at what the character did in the limited screen time if they didn't appear on the screen that much. So Taserface, while he didn't have many scenes in the MCU, basically stole every one for me. That's why he's going in A tier. As if this is a question, Malekith goes in the F tier. Okay. Look, C means average, I get it. So on a base level, yes, Malekith is technically just generic, and maybe he's a C villain on that level. But just the untapped potential and the wasted opportunity that this character was, plus how boring and forgettable and just awful of a villain he is. Like, you could not have written a more generic villain if you tried. I get it, Thor the Dark World wasn't necessarily focusing on the villain, but when your villain is Malekith, and when he looks like this in the comics, and you made him look like this, I think something's seriously wrong. I really do, because that should not have happened. It just shouldn't have. I honestly can't believe that Malekith made it. I know that Thor the Dark World had not the best production, but man, really? At least Lee Pace hammed it up and was somewhat entertaining in a cringeworthy way, maybe. I'm going to put Baron Zemo in the A tier. Now, yes, I covered it in my Civil War review, but his plan makes absolutely no sense. There are so many different places in his plan where it could have gone completely wrong, and he was just basically relying on pure chance. For example, at the end of the film, when he's in that base in Siberia, he's relying on Cap and Iron Man, and I guess Bucky to show up there. How would he have known that? What if all of the Avengers showed up? What if they all made up during the airport battle, which he didn't know was going on, I don't think. And what if all of the Avengers just showed up and it's this one dude and he's basically going to get obliterated by Iron Man, Captain America, Vision, Bucky, Falcon? Like, seriously, that really wasn't well thought out, and it was really lucky of him that he only got Captain America, Iron Man, and Bucky. That being said, while I don't necessarily think that Zemo needed to be in Civil War, I think Iron Man was enough, and maybe Marvel was just scared they didn't want to turn Tony Stark into a villain. I understand that. But I do think that the Russos were really brave and bold in picking a villain as nuanced and as human as Helmut Zemo. They could have gone with some maniacal alien, laser-shooting, shape-shifting Skrull or whatever, but they went with Zemo. And for what it's worth, I think that Daniel Bruhl's performance as the character is brilliant. I am so excited to see him back in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier because I think that that is a project where he will lend himself better towards. I don't think he was the best utilized in Civil War, but I think the character is brilliant. He has so much pain and underlying suffering that he's going through. You even see in one shot of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier trailer, he's at a Sokovia memorial, and the character is just so rich. That's what I love about him. And if they explore that more in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and if he's a big part of the Thunderbolts, if that's ever going to happen, which I'm sure it will, then I'm excited. I really do like Daniel Bruhl in the role. Daniel Bruhl in the role. Wow, that is hard to say. All right, next character. I'm going to put Ghost in the B tier. A lot of people don't like Ghost as a villain. I think she's generic and all that sort of stuff. And again, I actually think this might be a very similar case to Baron Zemo. I think the character of Ghost has some potential. I really did enjoy Hannah John Kamen's performance as the character, and I think she will come back in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Because after all, they are trying to get healing particles for her at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp before the whole snap happens. And I think the character just has more to give. I think that's why I put her so high, relatively speaking, on the list. Because, while yes, she had a very limited role in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and the ending just turned out to be, well, kind of this hot potato chase around the city of San Francisco, which eventually turned her into a good guy, which kind of undermined the whole villain plot, because then you had Sonny Birch as the villain. Anyways, I'm rambling. Point being, if she's a good guy now, or if she's an anti-hero, or she's a bad guy going to the Thunderbolts, I think that she has a really interesting place in the MCU. Her power set and her visual style is fascinating. Maybe it's just me projecting for the future, but I do hope we see her again because I did enjoy the character. I'll stick Dr. Erskine also in the B tier. Now, Stanley Tucci, again, does not have a lot of screen time in the MCU. However, his character is essentially the sole motivator for Captain America at the beginning. Like, obviously, Captain America Steve Rogers has his ideals and he wants to fight in the war and, what's the phrase that they use, beat up Nazis? But he needed that push, and clearly Bucky Barnes wasn't going to give it to him. Bucky was basically saying, hey, just stay home. Let me take care of it. You're small. You're not going to make it. I'm trying to protect you as a friend. What Dr. Erskine did is similar to what Yinsen did for Iron Man in the first film, which is give the hero a little bit of a push. I do believe that one of the most important scenes in Captain America's entire arc is the scene where he's talking to Dr. Erskine in the barracks, and Dr. Erskine says, remember, no matter what happens, you gotta remember that you have to be a good person. More than a good soldier, a good man. And I think that that really encapsulates Steve Rogers' journey. On top of that, I like Stanley Tucci quite a bit, actually. And I really did enjoy his time in the MCU, however short it was. I do believe he's going to come back to voice Dr. Erskine in What If, which makes sense because there's going to be a scene with Peggy as Captain America, so that obviously does make sense. And again, I don't think it's much of an exaggeration to say that Dr. Erskine really was the one who propelled Captain America, or who propelled Steve Rogers into becoming Captain America. Dormammu, I will put in the C tier. Because much like Surtur, he was there for about, 5 minutes? And he was, well, interesting looking. I'm not going to pretend and say the CGI is the most masterful thing ever. No, it looked like a CGI alien creature. But I also think that the sequence that he was involved in was really novel and creative. And again, that's what differentiates Doctor Strange from a lot of other generic comic book films, is the way that it ended. It looked like it was going to be a huge standoff in Hong Kong, and it turned out to be a really interesting bargaining scene. However, Dormammu is, well, again, a big blob of CGI that doesn't really do anything. How powerful is he exactly? Like, if Thanos was going to wipe away half the universe, where was Dormammu? I thought he liked dead people. It's kind of interesting how you introduce these characters like Surtur and Dormammu, who are insanely powerful, and just never have them show up again. Which is kind of odd, because if you think about it, if they exist in the universe, well, where are they? What are they doing? I mean, look, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal at all. It doesn't matter, but still, it's just interesting to think about. But again, Dormammu's scene in Doctor Strange was good. The character was, well, it was there. It was fine. He was fine. Voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch, by the way. Little trivia fact for you. But I'm not exactly clamoring for a Dormammu spin-off film. That's all. Janet Van Dyne, I will put in the C tier. It kind of pains me to do it because I look at the C tier and I go, look at all these amazing actors and actresses that Marvel has gotten. People like Kurt Russell, Anthony Hopkins, Michelle Pfeiffer. And yet, I just never really enjoyed her character in Ant-Man and the Wasp. She was fine. She was good. Not particularly excited to see her again. I think it is time for a new Wasp and a new Ant-Man, which they have already done in Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne. So, to me, it's really interesting how the second Ant-Man sort of took a step back in a sense, trying to bring back the mom arc. I would have been totally fine if Janet Van Dyne had just stayed in the quantum realm. They needed her to be there, obviously, because of Fantastic Four, presumably, and Kang the Conqueror. So they needed her to come out of the quantum realm. Again, though, canonically, I would have been totally fine if we never heard from Janet Van Dyne again. That is no slight against Michelle Pfeiffer, who is a brilliant actress. I just don't see much value to the character. She has some weird healing powers, but that was really never touched upon again. Hopefully it will be, maybe, because it seems interesting. But who knows? We'll have to see. Jasper Sitwell, C tier? Like I said, this tier list includes basically everyone and anybody who had a single line of dialogue or a reference in a movie. Galaga Guy is even here. Jasper Sitwell, he's fine. He gets thrown out a window. He has a memorable scene in The Winter Soldier where he gets pushed off a cliff, or a building, rather. And that was pretty cool because you get to see Falcon for the first time. And he has that famous line, Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange, anyone who's a threat to Hydra. Other than that, he is a generic S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who is, well, a Hydra agent, and he does his part just fine. He was in that little one-shot, I think, where he was talking to Phil Coulson in a diner, and I don't remember much about that either. So again, because I don't have anything else to say about him, I'm just gonna stick him in the C tier. I'm gonna put Talos in the A tier. I absolutely love Ben Mendelsohn as Talos. I didn't know how much I would enjoy his character until I saw Captain Marvel, which, by the way, you can say what you want about the film, and that's totally fine, but I still maintain that that twist for the Skrulls being good was actually really brilliant. Because nobody, whatsoever, nobody, maybe a couple people, but barely anybody had any inkling that the Skrulls would be good guys in the film. Everybody was talking about Secret Invasion and Skrulls are bad guys, and it turns out they're good guys, and I think that is for the better. On top of that, Ben Mendelsohn is so likable. He really is. He manages to make this weird bluish-green alien a relatable, likable character, which is great, and I'm so excited to see him again in Secret Invasion with Nick Fury. And I was super pumped to see him in Spider-Man Far From Home as well. To me, Talos represents the creativity of Marvel, and again, Ben Mendelsohn is a fantastic actor who plays the role so well, and I think he deserves some recognition because I do think he is going to be a pivotal part of the MCU moving forward, because, well, Secret Invasion is coming. The list is getting a little bit crowded, but we're going to put Thunderbolt Ross in the C tier. So I had this conversation with somebody, and I think it was really interesting because maybe I'm in the minority about this. So we were talking about Red Hulk, because obviously Red Hulk is coming. There's no denying that he will be in the MCU at some point. And I said to this person, I don't have any interest in seeing this, 50, 60, 70-year-old guy turn into a giant Red Hulk. I just don't have any interest in seeing that. I don't. And he goes, well, I actually do. I'm actually really excited at the thought of William Hurt, Thunderbolt Ross, turning into the Red Hulk. And I go, am I in the minority about this? Because I always assumed that everybody was excited for Red Hulk because of Thunderbolts. But then I realized maybe people are excited about Red Hulk because of Red Hulk. Regardless, I still don't necessarily want to see this old dude turn into the Hulk. Maybe that's just me. You'll have to let me know in the comments. But I don't mind Thunderbolt Ross. I didn't jump for joy or shout in despair when he showed up again in Civil War. Didn't particularly like him in The Incredible Hulk, but I guess he was supposed to be unlikable. And then he shows up again in Infinity War, he's fine. He shows up again in Endgame, doesn't have a line. Gonna show up in Black Widow, gonna show up probably in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it's clear that Marvel wants him to be a big part of the future, presumably the Thunderbolts. Red Hulk, this guy, I don't know. I don't know. Marvel has always been surprising me for the past 10, 11 years, but this one might be a little bit of a stretch. We'll see. We'll have to see. I've been saying that a lot, but a lot of it hinges upon what happens in the future. Maybe Red Hulk is awesome, and I'm going to bump him all the way to the A tier, or maybe he sucks, and he goes to the F tier. Not sure. For now, C tier. Oof, Yellow Jacket, F tier. Noticing a trend for the F tier? Yeah, it's all the bad villains, because I just can't stand bad villains, and that's why a lot of them are going in the F tier. Maybe a lot of you liked Yellow Jacket, and if you did, awesome. But me, Corey Stoll is fine. He does fine. I'm sure he did everything that Peyton Reed wanted him to. He was fine. And then he just liquefies or vaporizes, Frank in the bathroom. And then he vaporizes a sheep or something, and he's like, yep, next test subject. And I'm like, okay. And then he starts screaming and going insane, and all they have to explain that is, well, he wasn't the most stable guy to begin with. Really? Really, that's it? He wasn't the most stable guy to begin with. That's all the character development you're going to give him other than, some alleged feud between him and Michael Douglas. Can you tell I don't like Yellow Jacket? Ant-Man is one of my favorite MCU films because it's just so enjoyable to watch, and yet it has one of the worst villains in the MCU in my eyes. That's disappointing to me, to say the least. I will put Yinsen in the A tier. It's a very similar discussion as to what I had with Dr. Erskine for Captain America. Ho Yinsen is basically the catalyst for Tony Stark's entire journey. The reason that I put him a tier higher than Dr. Erskine is because I think he was a little bit more impactful for Tony. I think Steve Rogers was heading in the right direction anyways. He just, like I said, needed that little push. Tony Stark needed to be turned 180 degrees around. And luckily for him, he had Yinsen in the cave with him. Those cave scenes where he's building the Iron Man suit, he's just playing, board games with Yinsen, those are some of my favorite scenes, honestly, in the first Iron Man film, because it shows the humanity of Tony Stark reflected in a character like Yinsen. And I do really love how Yinsen doesn't tell Tony Stark that his family's dead, and he's doing all of this so he can get Tony Stark out of the cave. This is the plan, he says to Tony at the end. And then he says, don't waste your life, and that carries on all the way through to Endgame. Tony Stark didn't waste his life. He knew what he was doing. And I think in large part it was because of Yinsen. Yinsen pushed him to be a better man, and I think that's a great thing. Honestly, just what Yinsen represents and how he was able to shape Tony Stark's character is so underrated. I think nobody talks enough about Yinsen in Tony Stark's character arc. They talk about his PTSD, Avengers, Thanos, but guys, let's talk about Yinsen for a second. Let's give him the recognition he deserves, because he definitely deserves a lot of it. Okay, the most controversial pick of all, Darcy Lewis, is going in the C tier, because I don't hate this character. I don't. People always say her humor is so bad and she's so cringy. You know what? I mean, if you think that, fine. But for me, I never saw anything egregiously wrong with her character. Some people online are out there comparing her to Jar Jar Binks for Star Wars versus her for Marvel. For the life of me, I cannot understand that. When I saw The Phantom Menace again, when I tried rewatching the film, I shut it off 20 minutes in because I could not stand Jar Jar Binks. I have no problem with Darcy Lewis in the Thor films. Is her humor a little juvenile and childish and weird and quirky? Yeah, of course it is. She's not the best parts of those movies either. And trust me, those movies don't have a lot of best parts in them, Thor and Thor the Dark World, in my eyes. But what is there to really, I don't know, hate about her? Maybe I'm just missing something, but when I see the films, I think she's fine. Even funny in a couple scenes. And I think the fact that she's back in WandaVision, I don't know why she's there. Maybe they're going to explain it, but I'm interested. I think more so it's that she, as a character, is coming back in WandaVision that confuses me, not that she as an actress is coming back, because I always thought that she was fine. She was fine. I don't know about the whole intern subplot, again, in Thor the Dark World, but again, even her intern, who, by the way, is not on this list, that's really sad to me. I think the intern should be in the A tier, but anyways. Let's take a moment to recognize Ian. But anyways, I think that subplot was a little bit odd and kind of weird in Thor the Dark World, but at the end of the day, it didn't bother me. And that's kind of what this character is. She doesn't bother me. She's not the best, not the worst. So I'll put her in the C tier. I'll put Aldrich Killian in the D tier, though it is admittedly closer than it looks. I think I would be inclined to put him in the C tier, but I'll put him in the D tier for now. Because look, initially he probably would have been in the F tier before I rewatched Iron Man 3, but if you watch my review, I actually turned around on this character a little bit. I think that there is still something left to be desired about him. He wasn't my favorite villain or favorite part of Iron Man 3. Then again, though, he does legitimately have motivations and aspirations, and there is a good reason, at least on paper, as to why he would go after Tony Stark in that way. And actually, everything about the character except the ending. Right at the end, he goes, "I am the Mandarin," and I went, "Ugh, really? Listen, it's fine if you don't want to have the real Mandarin in the film, but you don't have to make Aldrich Killian the Mandarin." Whatever, that's a whole different story. But I think that scene kind of painted the character in a negative light to me, because when I rewatched the film, I went, oh, he's actually surprisingly not as over the top and not as crazy in the final fight as I thought he was, or as I remembered him being. So I actually don't mind the character. Do I want to see him again in the MCU, even though he's dead, I'm sure? No, not really. Then again, do I hate every single scene that he's in Iron Man 3? No. Is he the best thing in the world? No, and that's why I'm going to put him in the D tier, because he's not that great, but he's not awful either, in my eyes. Cassie Lang, I'll put in the B tier. I mean, she's a cute kid, and so, I'm not entirely sure what else I can say about the character. They haven't really delved into her. Now, obviously they will in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but her job in those films is to be the anchor for Scott Lang just by being there. She doesn't have to do anything or say anything. I think Abby Ryder-Fortson's performance is adequately cute and grounded and realistic for a young girl, especially Scott Lang's daughter. She does a really good job playing off of Paul Rudd's performance. I think that those are some of the best parts of Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp. But, yeah, she's just there to be, the reason that Scott Lang does what he does. And I think she adequately fulfills that role. Now, again, we'll have to see in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I liked her in Endgame, I did. And she did well, Emma Furman, in those 2 scenes that she was in. But other than that, there's not much to talk about the character yet. So we'll come back to her at some point, I'm sure, in a future tier list. Cosmo the Space Dog. Yeah, I'll put him in the C tier. Why not? Seriously, though, Ian isn't included and Cosmo is? Come on. Where's the love for Ian? Anyways. Yeah, Cosmo was in what? 1 scene, and it was the post-credit scene. I mean, he was in the main Guardians film, but he was just kind of sitting there, and then he was licking the collector at the end, right? And then Howard the Duck appears. By the way, we'll get to Howard the Duck. But yeah, he's Cosmo the Space Dog. They haven't done anything with the character, and that's fine. They don't need to do anything with the character, but he's on this tier list, and I have to put him somewhere. So I guess I'll put him on the C tier. I can't believe that he's actually on this list. I'm still baffled by that, but whatever. He's cute. He's a dog. We all like dogs, right? If you don't like dogs, sound off in the comments, but I'm sure you're going to get bombarded with angry dislikes and rage comments. But anyways, yeah, C tier. Okay, Crossbones, I'll put in the D tier. This was an interesting case. This is one I went back and forth on a little bit because my head was saying one thing, but my heart was saying another. That is the cheesiest thing I could ever say about a fictional character that looks like a pirate skull. But really, my head was like, put him in the B or the C tier because he was pretty cool. But then I went, I never liked the character though. And because this tier is my tier list, I'm gonna stick him in the D tier. I don't like the character. I did not like Frank Grilla's performance as Brock Rumlow in either The Winter Soldier or Civil War. There's something about the delivery and the way that he talks that's so arrogant, but not in a good way. Just sort of, I'm Crossbones, and I'm gonna kill you, Captain America. I mean, he does his job. He's perfectly fine. He has a good action scene in Civil War, and then he dies. So, again, I really wanted to like the character. I think the design of the Crossbones suit is awesome. I just don't. I really don't like this Crossbones character. Speaking of not liking, though, Caecilius, F tier. Listen, out of all of the horrible Marvel villains that have been in the F tier, Caecilius is one of the worst in my eyes, because Mads Mikkelsen, first of all, is a phenomenal actor. He's going to play Grindelwald, and I think he's going to do a great job. He did a great job as Galen Erso in Star Wars Rogue One. But what is this character? Listen, the fact that I put Dormammu 2 tiers above the main villain of Doctor Strange has to tell you something. This is not a good character. Lack of character development, check. Awkward performance, check. Really awkward performance, check. Visually, not that great, check. Not a formidable force, check. Just cringy altogether, check. And that is a recurring problem with these origin story villains, because they don't pay a lot of attention to the origin story villains, and that's fine, because you want to build up the hero. At the same time, though, you could have at least done better than Caecilius, right? Right? Am I crazy? Howard the Duck's here. I'll put him in the B tier. Yes, he is a throwaway joke. Absolutely, he was just there for pure shock value and comedy. He shows up at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. He's in there for a couple scenes in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He's in there for Avengers Endgame, by the way, if you guys didn't know that. He shows up at the end in the portal scene. And he's voiced by Seth Green. Literally, I don't know what else to say. The fact that he's in the B tier and not the C tier is because, well, he's funny. And the fact that he's there is hilarious in itself, right? The fact that James Gunn was able to include Howard the Duck in his Guardians of the Galaxy films, that's inherently funny to me. Other than that, though, unless they're going to do something crazy with him in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I can't imagine, he's just there to be a throwaway joke, and that's fine. Use him in that regard, and I would rather not see another Howard the Duck film. Maybe that's just me, but I'd rather not. I will put Okoye in the B tier. Okoye is the definition of a good side character. She supports the main character. She clearly isn't supposed to be the head or the lead character of any of the films, but she does her part. She's good at the physical action. She's actually pretty funny as well. She has some good lines in Black Panther and in Avengers Infinity War, and again, she does her part. By the way, though, remember everybody was up in arms about how she wasn't on the poster of Avengers Endgame? And yes, she should have been on the poster of Avengers Endgame. Turns out, though, she only had about, 2 minutes of screen time before the portal scene. I just thought it was funny because people got up in arms about that, when in reality, Marvel probably didn't include her on the poster because, well, she had literally 2 minutes of screen time. But anyways, that was just a funny thing that I remembered while making this tier list. So, Okoye, yeah, B tier. She's pretty solid. Oof, one of the few non-villain characters to go in the D or the F tier, Sharon Carter, I'm going to put in the D tier. I'm sorry, this character doesn't work for me. I don't think it works for a lot of people. Russo brothers, you could have saved yourself so much trouble by not including that kiss in Captain America Civil War. Here's the thing. I'm fine with a flirty relationship in The Winter Soldier and even in Civil War. I'm fine with that. Even that might be controversial, by the way, but I'm okay with them sort of hinting at something, right? Because look, Captain America is trying to move on. He is trying to move on because Peggy Carter is not there anymore. She's not, mentally well and all that sort of stuff. I get that. And if they decided to make the Steve and Sharon story the main part of Captain America Civil War, fine. You can have the kiss then because it feels warranted, I guess. The fact that it happened right before the airport scene, it was so jarring and so random, and it was so out of line. It was so weird. I don't understand why the Russos included that scene. I don't get it. On top of the fact that, well, Peggy had just died. Like, literally 30 minutes ago in the movie. She had just died. And you're going to put that scene in there? I don't mind Sharon Carter. I think she's a fine character, and I think that she's going to be good in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I really do. But we can just never forget that scene in Captain America Civil War. Russos, you might have just dropped the ball big time on that one. Because, yeah, this scene, that was bad. Ned Leeds, A tier. I love Ned. Now, I don't think he's quite up there with Luis because he's sort of like Luis in that he's sort of the sidekick, the side character of the main hero, Spider-Man and Ant-Man. But Luis is just on a whole nother level. He is so unbelievably good. Ned, I love Ned. Absolutely. Ned steals almost every scene that he's in. I cannot wait to see him again in Spider-Man 3. He's one of the best parts of both Spider-Man films. And even his scene in Avengers Infinity War is awesome. So the fact that he's not in the S tier is not a knock to the character. Because guys, have you seen who's in the A tier? It's a pretty good tier, right? Don't you think? Again, Jacob Batalon, he is just one of the best parts of the MCU. I'm so glad they got him. And I'm so glad that he's going to be in Spider-Man 3. Have I said that before? I think I've said that before. And so I'll put him in the A tier. Idris Elba's Heimdall, I'll put in the C tier. It was clear starting around, Thor the Dark World, that they really didn't know what to do with the character. And I think even Taika Waititi was like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing with him. And so the Russos promptly killed him off in Avengers Infinity War. He did his part sending Hulk back to Earth. That was great. It's just, Heimdall is kind of bad at his job. He's really bad at his job. If he's supposed to be able to see everything, I get it, Dark Elves disguise themselves and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of the things that, he should be able to do, he just kind of overlooks, right? But I like the character, I like the design, I like the sword fighting. I think he's fun in every scene he's in, at least. Idris Elba is a good actor. He's a great actor. So I don't absolutely hate the character, but I also think that he was pretty much wasted in a lot of the films. So that's kind of disappointing to me. Anyone remember that he was in Age of Ultron, by the way? Yeah, that happened. So, MJ, I'm going to put in the B tier, actually. Based on Spider-Man Far From Home alone, I would have put her in the A tier. Based on Spider-Man Homecoming alone, I would have put her in the C tier. Therefore, she goes in the B tier. Look, in Spider-Man Homecoming, she was weird. And sort of unnecessarily so. It sort of felt awkward that she was there. And she had some really interesting lines, I guess. She was an interesting character, but she was sort of edgy for the sake of being edgy. And again, she really didn't play a big part in Spider-Man Homecoming, so I can't blame her for that. But in Spider-Man Far From Home, when she became the focus of Peter Parker's attention, and our attention as the audience, Zendaya was really able to shine. That awkwardness turned from cringy edginess to just really endearing. And you can kind of see what Peter Parker sees in her as well. And she, on top of that, is a very capable person. She knows what she's doing. Much like Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, she's not just there to be there. Kind of like Kirsten Dunst was in the original Spider-Man. She was just kind of there, Always had to be saved. And that was the original early 2000s superhero films, the damsel in distress, right? But no, here Zendaya is smart. She really knows what she's doing. And yeah, it's clear that that relationship has potential. It really does. I'm excited to see her again, just like I am with Ned in Spider-Man 3. The as yet unnamed Spider-Man 3, by the way, at the recording of this video. So for now, we're going to put Jane Foster in the C tier. Talk to me after Thor Love and Thunder, though. I have a feeling that Taika Waititi has some really interesting stuff planned for this character. For now, though, look, I don't think it's her fault that she doesn't work that well in Thor and Thor the Dark World and that she wanted out of Thor Ragnarok. I don't think that's her fault at all. Natalie Portman is an Oscar-caliber actress. I mean, look at her in Black Swan and so many other films. Unfortunately, in the pop culture, she has been in two of the biggest franchises of modern cinema, Star Wars and the MCU, and she's been put in horrible relationships for both. With no fault of her own, by the way. I think, in Star Wars, the writing was just not on her side. She was paired with Hayden Christensen, who was not given the best dialogue either. I think they just were forced into this weird relationship. And in Thor, just didn't work. They tried. They really did try. It just didn't work. So whatever Taika's got planned, I'm all for, because honestly, at this point, I just don't know. I'm really hopeful that her turn as Thor or Lady Thor, or whatever they're going to call her, is awesome, because right now the character is just so for me. Again, talk to me after Thor Love and Thunder. Then we might have a completely different discussion. We'll see. Alright guys, final quick break. We have just ranked 100 MCU characters. We have, I think, 12 more to go. Thank you guys if you are still watching. I've been watching all the way through. Thank you guys so much. This video has been so long. If you stuck it out, thank you guys so much. Alright, here's the final, last clip.
Avengers! Assemble.
Alright, let's kick off the final set with Corvus Glaive, who I will put in the D tier. Look, the Black Order, they were not supposed to be the main parts of Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. I get that. And I also understand that they're not atrocious either. The designs of the characters are pretty cool, at least. And the fact that they were able to introduce 4 different side characters, side villains in Avengers Infinity War, and have them at least have some relevance to the story is actually really cool. Because they were introduced in a film that had Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Black Widow, War Machine, you could go on and on and on. So the fact that they even had a chance at retaining some of the audience's attention is a good thing. That being said, out of the 4 members of the Black Order, well, I don't think Corvus Glaive is my least favorite. He just kind of exists, and he gets killed by Vision. So, yeah, that's about it for Corvus Glaive. It pains me to do this, but I am actually going to put Eitri the Dwarf in the D tier as well. I love Peter Dinklage. I loved him in X-Men Days of Future Past. I thought he was a great villain there. I really do love Peter Dinklage. That being said, when I thought about how I felt about his character in Avengers Infinity War, I actually found that, yeah, I just didn't like him that much. He was okay. Also, his accent that was really off-putting. Is that just me? Every time I see Avengers Infinity War, I'm like, is that just me that his accent is really bad? It's so off-putting, it almost threw me out of the movie the first time that I saw it. And again, Avengers Infinity War, you know, when I saw it first time in the theaters, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and the first time that I even remotely was taken out of the movie was when Eitri showed up, and he started talking. And I went, huh? I'm not entirely sure if it's just the accent that I don't like about the character, but I just don't like the character. Oh well, here's hoping that Peter Dinklage shows up again though, because I do like him, and I hope that he gets a better turn in whatever film he shows up next. Thor: Love and Thunder maybe? Guardians 3? Who knows? Cull Obsidian, D tier. Just like everything I said about Corvus Glaive applies to Cull Obsidian, because he did nothing. He is probably my least favorite member of the Black Order because he did nothing. He gets blown out of the sky into the Wakandan perimeter by the Hulkbuster armor. He does nothing. Again, which is not the Russos' fault because they had 10 billion other things to worry about, but I do have to judge based on what I saw, and what I saw was nothing. He wasn't even that intimidating, honestly. He was just there to get kind of kicked around by Iron Man or whatever, but anyways. And also, he hilariously gets his hand cut off by Wong, who never does that again, by the way, in the rest of the movie. Wouldn't that have been helpful if they had Doctor Strange or Wong cut off the Infinity Gauntlet hand? Anybody? Because that wouldn't have been helpful at all. Anyways. Surprisingly, though, I'm actually going to put Ebony Maw in the B tier. Because I actually like Ebony Maw quite a bit. Is he the best thing about Infinity War? No. Does he have to be? Absolutely not. And out of all of the members of the Black Order, Cull Obsidian, Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight did basically nothing. But Ebony Maw got to show off his power set, and I do like how he is sort of this sage, above it all sort of villain, who feels high and mighty, he knows everything, he is able to beat Doctor Strange and put those weird needle things in his face. I actually really did like the character, and I like that he was back in Endgame as well, sort of being the technician for Thanos, showing him all of Nebula's memories. It really is surprising to me just how well he worked. Again, if I didn't like Ebony Maw as much as I didn't like the other members of the Black Order, Infinity War might have had one other con to put on the list. The fact that one of the members of the Black Order worked as well as they did, kind of makes them all worth it. Because again, I wasn't expecting 4 fully developed villains. I just wanted, cannon fodder for the heroes. Turns out they were cannon fodder for the heroes. And Ebony Maw turned out to be really cool. I liked him a lot. Proxima Midnight, though, joins her fellow Black Order members in the D tier because, yep, let's hear it again. She did, say it with me everybody, nothing. She had a couple, intimidating lines, I guess. We have blood to spare. That actually is a pretty cool line, I guess. And then she brings out the Outrider army, and she fights Captain America, Falcon, and Black Widow, and that was a really cool action sequence, by the way. That is one of the coolest action sequences in the entire movie. Other than that, though, does she do anything? No? So, yeah, I'm gonna put her in the D tier. By me putting the Black Order in the D tier, most of them anyways, it doesn't mean I hate them, because I understand they didn't have to be fully fleshed out villains. Didn't like them either, though, so I'm gonna put them there. I think I'm gonna put Aunt May in the B tier. I don't know, something about Marissa Tomei's performance, I like how youthful she is, actually. Not just because of all the jokes about the young Aunt May, how attractive she is to Tony Stark. Youthful meaning, it just makes the character feel a lot more real because Peter Parker is pretty young, right? In Spider-Man Homecoming, I believe he's 15. Like, that's pretty young. So the fact that Aunt May was this elderly grandma in a lot of the other films, that's fine, that's how she was in the comics, and I get that there is an appeal to that as well, right? But this makes a lot more sense because she would be about a normal mom's age. It's not like she's a grandma raising Peter Parker. She is just the sister-in-law to Richard Parker, who would be about a normal dad age if Peter Parker is, 15, 16, 17 in Spider-Man Homecoming or Spider-Man Far From Home? So I actually think that her being that young kind of adds to the realism of the Spider-Man films. What I love about the Spider-Man films, Spider-Man Homecoming in particular, because it's set mostly in school, is that it feels real. These are real kids. It feels like Tom Holland is playing a real high school kid in a real high school filled with real high schooler peers with real teachers, and the fact that Aunt May is played very charismatically by Marissa Tomei, makes it feel like it is believable. Now, her romance with Happy Hogan, not the biggest fan in the world of that by any stretch of the imagination, but, you know, it was cute and it was fine and it worked, and probably not going to see that ever again. I don't think. I don't know that, but I don't think so. Nakia, I will put in the C tier. And it's not because I don't think Lupita Nyong'o has all the talent in the world. Obviously, Lupita Nyong'o is one of the single most talented actresses working on the planet today, period. I think for me, the reason that Nakia goes in the C tier is because I just haven't seen enough of her, to be honest. She appeared in one film, and she was great in that one film, but she was even barely in that one film. Like in Black Panther, she really had less screen time, I think, than Shuri did. So while I really like the character, and yes, rest in peace Chadwick Boseman, we won't get to see them interact anymore. And I know everyone wants to see Storm instead, but, you know, I think Nakia did a great job in the role. Whether or not we will see her again, well, she's going to be in Black Panther 2, I believe. Obviously, her role might have changed based on Chadwick Boseman's passing, so I'm not entirely sure what we're going to see out of her in the future. But again, if you get an Academy Award-winning actress to play a part in any film, consider yourself lucky. Lupita Nyong'o has all the talent in the world. Just haven't seen it yet in the MCU. That's why I'll put her, for now, in the C tier. The Shocker, or Shocker number 2, I guess, I'm going to put in the C tier. Maybe closer to D tier, but I'll put him in the C tier. Why not? By the way, though, anyone remember before Spider-Man Homecoming when everybody was like, there are too many villains in this one, because it was reported that there was going to be Vulture and maybe Scorpion and 2 Shockers and the Tinkerer, and everyone was like, too many villains, Spider-Man 3. Turned out fine. Turned out just fine, everybody. And the reason for that is because the movie knew how to integrate the villains together well, and knew to give the focus to Michael Keaton's Vulture because he had to have the spotlight. That being said, obviously it took away the focus from some of the other villains, and this isn't even Shocker number 1, this is Shocker number 2. And Shocker number 2 had a couple interesting action sequences, like the bus yard scene, where he kind of beats around Peter Parker for a little bit, and then Ned gets him. That was pretty cool, I guess. And then he does absolutely nothing else, ever. So again, while I do think that he is a cool character, maybe with some potential, I don't necessarily see him as a member of the Sinister Six. A lot of the people are trying to put him there. They're going to say, oh look, Scorpion and the Shocker are still there. They can be part of the Sinister Six. To me, I mean, if they make him really cool and they put him in the movie, that's fine. And, you know, they can always change my mind, of course. And I don't have anything against Bokeem Woodbine. I think he did a fine job in the role. I just think, I mean, when you got Venom, you got Carnage, you got Morbius, why do you need the Shocker? I don't know. Maybe that's just me, though. Tony Revolori's Flash Thompson. I will put him in the B tier. I think there's something interesting about this character. Something is being set up that we're not being told explicitly what it is yet, because there are some really interesting mentions about how his parents are neglecting him. Some people have speculated that means he's going to be the surrogate Harry Osborn. Maybe. Because those scenes in Spider-Man Far From Home were actually surprisingly tragic. The fact that his parents didn't come to pick him up. It was really interesting that John Watts decided to take time out of a pretty long film to include those scenes and those little Easter eggs where he's texting his parents or his butler or whatever, like, hey, Mom, are you there? I don't know. There's something interesting there that's being set up. So I'm very curious to see where this character goes from here. Based on what we've seen thus far, though, he is a perfect antagonist to Peter Parker, and not just Peter Parker, but this version of Peter Parker, the modern one. Flash Thompson doesn't have to be the high school basketball jock star. He can be a nerd just like Peter Parker, and I love that about this version. I love that the MCU understands they don't need another jock be Spider-Man. They really got the high school aspect of the Spider-Man films, and they understand what it means to be a high school kid. A bully doesn't necessarily mean physically. I think Tony Revolori plays the character extremely well. He is actually coming back in Spider-Man 3. They made a note about that. So what's his role going to be? Again, I'm very intrigued because there are some really interesting hints and nods being set up here that I'm not entirely sure where they're going to lead. We'll have to see, but count me in. I'm interested. Sylvester Stallone, who I completely forgot, his character's name is Starhawk apparently. I'm going to put in the D tier. Listen, we all know Sylvester Stallone is an iconic actor. Of course he is. Rocky, of course. But, I don't know. From what I saw in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, he wasn't the best. His acting for sure was not top-notch to me. I don't think it was by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't know if he's going to show up again in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Honestly, I wouldn't really want him to. I don't know if James Gunn wants him to be a big part of the future of the Guardians of the Galaxy because, to be quite honest with you, While I understand his place in cinema history and recognize that he is one of the icons of cinema, along with people like Schwarzenegger, I don't necessarily want to see him front and center in an MCU film. I think it's fine that he was there in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and that James Gunn wanted to be with him and cast him again. That's totally fine. But yeah, I don't know if I want to see him again in the MCU. Maybe that's just me. Who knows? The penultimate character, Bill Foster, I'm going to put in the C tier. Look, I don't hate the character. And of course, Lawrence Fishburne is a great actor. In fact, he was in both Man of Steel, the DCEU, and Ant-Man and the Wasp, the MCU. So that's something, I guess. So he joined Zachary Levi in being in both, which is pretty cool. And James Gunn, I suppose. But, he's a director. At any rate, his role in Ant-Man and the Wasp was to be sort of antagonistic while not being an antagonist. And obviously he has this history with Hank Pym. He was okay. I don't necessarily see him showing up again in the MCU. I don't necessarily think I would want him to, because I'm not entirely sure what else he would have to contribute to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania when you're dealing with Kang the Conqueror, this guy. But he was there, and Lawrence Fishburne is a great actor, so, good to see him there. But I'll put him in the C tier for now. And our final character, Walton Goggins, Sonny Birch. I'll put him in the D tier. He was really hamming it up. And while I don't think he's quite F tier, because yes, he was also hamming it up just like Ronan was in Guardians of the Galaxy, he was also not necessarily front and center, and I think he was hamming it up in a better way than Lee Pace was. He was definitely not my favorite part of that film, though. He was probably one of my least favorite parts. He did what he could, I guess, given that I think the character was meant to be really over the top and goofy, I think. But I can't say I'm a huge fan of him. Will he show up again in Ant-Man 3? I'm not sure, because there's the whole benefactor mystery, and I'm sure that's going to show up again. Maybe even in Shang-Chi. Maybe it's the Mandarin. Who knows? I've speculated before that it's Norman Osborn. Who knows? It could be. Could be Doctor Doom. In fact, Doctor Doom makes probably more sense because he's probably going to show up in Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania, so maybe he's the benefactor. But the character himself, listen, I didn't hate him at all. But he is probably forgettable, and he is towing the line. He really is towing the line of comically bad. So for right now, I'll put him in the D tier. And with that, guys, we have ranked over 100 characters of the MCU. Take a look at the tier list thus far. I'll scroll down so you can see each and every character and where they landed ultimately in my tier list. We are almost at 2 hours on the video. Guys, if you somehow made it through this whole thing, thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. Again, I really wanted to work on a video that I could call a project, a really big commitment, something that I could be immensely proud of, and I am immensely proud of this video. So please, guys, if you haven't subscribed already and you like this content and you enjoy the channel and you want to check out some more videos, please make sure to subscribe. It would mean the world to me. If you like this video, please give it a like. That also helps to support the channel. And most of all, if you guys really did enjoy this video and you think other people would enjoy the video as well, please, it would mean the world to me if you could share this with others. Again, I spent a lot of time on it. I'm so proud of it. And I would really love and appreciate if this video could be seen by a lot of people because, again, tier lists are fun and making these videos are fun. And I really want to bring you guys the best content that I possibly can. So if you stuck around all the way, thank you so much. And if you watched till the end, well, obviously some people would have skipped to the end. So I don't know if this is effective or not, but comment something down below. Let's say comment the word pizza just to let me know that you made it through the whole video. Now I'm going to rest and watch the sunrise on a grateful universe. Hopefully grateful, I hope so. But that will be it for this video. So guys, let me know where you guys would have ranked your characters on the tier list. I'm going to leave the link to the template in the description down below. Again, if you like this video, you like the content, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like. It would really, really mean a lot. Make sure to share this video with a lot of people if you really could. That would mean the world to me. If you want to check out some more videos, check out the videos on the screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.